What's going on, people? Hello and welcome to the latest episode of What We Talking About. Of course, I am Aaron T. Montgomery. Tonight, the T stands for Tastes Good, because that's what's in the cup. My guy over there, as always, is
Donovan Woods, the reason why you tune in. Good evening.
Apparently. Donnie, we received a little feedback about that, and
We did.
it wasn't too flattering of myself, if I should say so.
It was good. Well, introduce our guests, and then I'll let them know, what they said about you.
All right. Our guest is someone very close to my heart. The reason I am who I am, because he set the stage for me. My older, big, little brother, Andre Montgomery. Welcome to the show.
What up? Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
He's one of my favorite people. He's positive. He's supportive. He's always just giving me words of encouragement.
Wow.
Yep.
What is in your cup? Because that is a lie. You don't like that, man.
This is nothing but... Anyway.
The check is in the mail, Donnie.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. By the end of this, you'll realize that I am full of it because this guy is not my friend. Just for the fans out there, we got some feedback from you. And before we get started on this discussion of what makes a legend, I want to just say Aaron does his best. He does research. He does a lot to add to this show. He doesn't do any editing. He doesn't do any post-production. He doesn't do any marketing. He doesn't do anything else. But he is more than just the green-eyed bandit of this show. He is more than just a light-skinned representation, the people that girls like. He's more
Hold on, buddy.
than just the El DeBarge-looking Albie Shore Joker, okay? He adds value. He's my friend. How you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know. It was a lot of hate, a lot of shade thrown in there. I caught all of it. I will say that
I'm
I
starting
don't
to feel
know.
uncomfortable already.
it's a little strange now, buddy. I don't know what to go with that. But let's just go to the topic since you don't know what you're doing. The question is, what makes an athlete or a legendary athlete? So
Not really.
brought Andre
I'm
on the
gonna-
show.
I'm gonna edit you a little bit, and I won't even edit this out of post-production that I do in my spare time. I'm gonna say it's what makes a legend, period, because the term is thrown around in every aspect of entertainment all the time now. So athletes are what we usually talk about, but Andre, if you want to throw in one of your favorite singers, or anytime anyone is an artist, whether it's like Aaron there, Basquiat, whatever it is, tell us what it is. Is that how you say it, Aaron? Basquiat, like that?
That is a pronunciation. But first, Andre, before you start naming names, we need some criteria. What would you say is some sort of criteria to go by, which to say if someone's a legend or not in whatever field they're in?
So I think when you look at the term legend or legendary, instantly something should come to mind about that person. And I won't even say just something. Several things should come to mind. Whether you remember them doing a specific move, or as Donnie would like to say, an album or two or three consecutive albums that were just from tracks 1 through 10, you can recall all of them. I think that those are part of the criteria to be considered legendary. I think that we confuse that term with, sometimes we'll say, well, this player is legendary because he played in a legendary game. That doesn't make him legendary. It just means that he was part of something that we remember as the game. But later on, that person didn't do anything really spectacular to continue to be considered a legendary player. So to me, there are a lot of moving parts here. But I think what has to happen is when you name that person, whether it's an athlete or a musician or entertainer, several memories or thoughts come to mind instantly. If you have to ponder and say, I think we need to move on from that individual.
Does that mean, when you say that, Dre, let me jump in and edit that a little bit. What if the person doesn't have the longevity? Let's go with Aaliyah, okay? Would you say Aaliyah is a legend in her industry, or is she just special in our hearts because we were around the same age, myself and Aaron? She was in your era when you were out being a young adult. She was on the scene. What makes a legend when it comes to someone who has a shorter career that's cut short like that?
So let's just go with Aaliyah. What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear that name? Her tragic way that she lost her life.
Yeah.
That's really it. And I hate to sound
That
heartless.
hurt a little bit, but go ahead. You're right.
I-
You're right.
she has some great songs, but when you say Aaliyah, I think, wow, she had a tragic death. How sad. Career cut short. She could have gone on to become legendary. I believe that she was definitely on that track. But other than that, I mean, the other thought that came to
Don't
mind is
say it.
I think
It's
she used to. Did
yes.
she used to date Dame
Yes. Don't
Dash?
don't
Oh
say
my
it.
goodness. See,
Don't.
She
Oh,
did.
okay. That Dame's okay. We can go with Dame. There was another one you could have named. I don't want to put that on her record. Okay, that's good.
okay.
That works. All right.
I agree with what Dre said. I would say the same thing. Not legendary. And when it comes to, I think it's harder when it comes to musicians. To be honest with you, because like an athlete, like you said, a short time span. That's kind of common for athletes. Like in most sports, it's like 3 to 5 years is the lifespan of a normal athlete. Maybe the legendaries have a longer career, so it's easy to point them out. But when it comes to music, if you only got like 2 albums, I don't think there's any way that you can be legendary. If you have one hit, there's no way for you to be legendary. You have to have a long career with multiple albums, multiple accolades to go along with those albums. It's a lot more involved when you're in a musician genre.
All right. I'm going to play the role of Montgomery for our audience. Montgomerys are known for a couple things. One, being good people. And also, they are good at debating when there's no reason to debate. So let's do that. I'm going to push back on you, Aaron, because how many albums did Christopher Wallace have?
2.
Okay. Is he considered legendary in his industry?
I would say yes.
2 albums. Did any of them are they like, did he have the most sales? At that point, you were literally looking at sales. Was he beating out, top R&B artists? What makes him legendary?
What he did for the industry. That's what makes him legendary. What he
Or
what he did
his-
for the East Coast of the industry.
Okay. See what I'm
So
saying?
his
That-
impact upon it outweighed the amount of product
That's
that he
my
put
point.
out there.
That's my point.
Whereas on the flip side of things, you had, the person that's put right next to him all the time is Tupac. Tupac,
he just hit
ha-
record
his-
and just walked through life with record.
He has a massive catalog of songs. He was constantly making songs and just putting words to mic. So the difference between the two is the impact that they had upon each coast is the same. One put out a lot of work, one did not. Both still legendary in their own right.
So let me stop right there. Don't answer, Dre. I gotta go a little ding ding ding. Did you say each coast is? Now, so we do that when we're on the phone.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
Dre, you
Hey,
got us
First,
by
let
at
me-
least 5 years. So he was. Let me ask you this, Dre. He said Tupac's got and we're talking about just 2 industry artists. One had a lot of product. The other had a little bit. If they both did not die, and they never made another album after the one they recorded at that point, would they go down as legendary when you compare it to someone like your era, Dre? I don't mean that disrespectfully, but someone like an LL Cool J who crosses over 2 or 3 decades.
Yes, I think both Tupac and Christopher Wallace, which you threw me off with that name because who calls him that but his mother? Biggie is what those who know him call him. I actually think that both of them are legendary now, even with just the 2 albums that Biggie had. And here's why. Because Biggie brought about a change in the style of rapping, of lyricists. He was so smooth. Here was this big guy who, if you saw walking down a dark alley, you would run the opposite way. But yet his delivery, his flow was so nice and smooth that you just said, man, I could listen to this brother tell me stories all day long. And so I think because of not only the time that he came about, and those 2 albums were the bomb, but also because of the fact that he actually started to change the culture of hip hop, where it went from battling MCs all the time and going against one another and dishing to I got a story to tell, as he says.
Right.
And then he did that. And every song was a story. And it was an amazing story. And so, whereas with Tupac, like we said, Tupac just has the catalog, man. I mean, I think Tupac.
So is
I'll
that
say this.
fair?
Let me
Is that
say this.
fair?
Let me say this. And I know this is going to really get you riled up. So that's what I'm going to say. If there was no murder of Tupac and Biggie, there's no Jay-Z. There is no Jay-Z.
I don't want
Because
to have any dead air, but hold on, no, no,
Because
no, no, no. Don't. Oh, you fell for the trap. Go ahead.
he has to explain himself.
no. I say that because of the fact that a lot of people forget Jay-Z was out when Biggie and Tupac was out. We never heard
Correct.
of him.
Mm.
Never heard of him.
I disagree.
Wasn't his name Jazzy J or something like that?
You stupid. See, when
Never-
you don't even have
never
the
on an
history.
album.
That's hate.
No.
That's hate. Stop it. Stop it.
Well,
But
okay,
let's
what
move on. Move on.
what was his
That's
rap
not.
name before?
His rap name has always been Jay-Z. Always.
I think it's Jazzy. It was Jazzy.
No, he had that was his
Jazzy
family
his
nickname.
friend. Yes.
They
Okay.
call his family calls
Listen,
him called
his
him
last
Jazzy.
name,
Got it.
That's
I
how
debate
that's where
him
he
with.
got the Jay-Z from.
Don't
Okay,
don't
all right.
debate his biggest fan. I can't be
I got
more.
it. I got you. His family called him Jay-Z, and then they called him Christopher Wallace on Biggie's side. I got it.
I don't even know what you're saying, but okay, all right. So that was music, just briefly. Let me just transition really quickly a little bit to jazz. Now, my father liked jazz, and I thought I knew what that meant, but looking back now, he liked pop jazz, what was on the radio. Okay, when I met you guys, when I met Aaron '92, and I walked into your house, your dad, when I looked at his CD collection at the time, I saw something called, was it Fat Burger, Aaron, or Fat? Is that the name of the group?
Yeah, that
And I
was the
remember
name of it.
thinking,
Fat Burger?
I mean, that I'm going, I gotta listen to this. Can I borrow this? Please no, I never gave that CD back to your dad. So I got the CD, I listened to it.
And please believe he remembered.
I know, and
And we'll be looking for it.
to hear him and his friend Daniel Smith talk about jazz music, it taught me that I didn't really know, and my dad really wasn't a fan. What do you think, from his point of view, from Daniel's, from people like, Tap Scott, people like that, even you guys, what makes a jazz artist legendary? You got Miles Davis, that's just a popular name, but I never remember seeing Miles Davis, on your dad's list. I'm sure it was there, but what
No.
made someone famous to him or something legendary to him?
Well, I don't think I'm going to harp on this the right way, because that was always a constant battle between my dad and myself. Him wanting to listen to jazz and me wanting to listen to hip hop and go-go.
Right.
But with that being said, Dad was just actually he didn't follow the beat or the walk that the norm would. So a Miles Davis, of course, all jazz lovers would say Miles Davis, but Dad's looking for the obscure individual. He's looking for somebody that no one's ever heard of, that plays the trumpet as good as Miles. It doesn't get the recognition that Miles. That was Dad's forte. So for him, it was just, I would say maybe as long as they were not the household brand musician, but still made him tap his feet and want to get up and dance, that person was legendary, would have been legendary to Dad.
Okay. Before I give my response to that and why I asked this question, Aaron, anything to add to that?
Like Andre's right, obviously. Like Dad, I don't believe he ever owned a Miles Davis album, or I don't recall ever seeing a John Coltrane album in his collection at all. And obviously, those are two names that everybody speaks of when it comes to jazz. He didn't like their style, though. He didn't really like the way they did it. It didn't completely capture him. Whereas, like Andre said, the person, like the song, I know this for a fact because he worked at a phone company. He would listen to once the jazz station came to the city, and when he heard something that they didn't give this new artist, whatever, they didn't say anything, they just played it, he would call the radio station, find out who it was. He would have that album, and then he'd have his friends over. He'd play the album. That's how a lot of the first time they heard things was at our house, because Dad would do that, and that's how he became known to them as the go-to individual for new jazz. I need to know. Call. They called him Gump. Call Gump up. What's new? What do I need to go get? And he would let him know. And that was his claim to fame. So he like Andre said, he always knew the obscure or the next up and coming great jazz artist.
I love that story, and I'm glad that's on record now. So let me tell you why I asked that question. Legendary, is it possible that what's legendary, everyone's going to go, okay, yes, based on talent, stats in terms of sales or whatever, that's obvious, that person's legendary because they're still recognized. However, to each individual, especially if you can just go on and give and show your passion about something, would that also have a classification as to the individual legendary status? Does that make sense?
I think so. I think that's a good point, Donnie. I just recently finished reading the John Thompson. I Came as a Shadow, and his legendary player was Elgin Baylor.
Hmm.
And it wasn't because of what Elgin Baylor did in the NBA, but it was because of how legendary he was on the street level when John was growing up, and he was nicknamed the Rabbit. And he goes on and on and on. And I really like the point that he made when he said, when we talk about the GOAT, when we talk about who's the greatest of all time, to him, it is and always will be the Rabbit, Elgin Baylor. And he said, and I saw Michael Jordan play live, and I saw LeBron and Kobe play live. But to me, it's always going to be the Rabbit. So to your point, I think it's individuals can become our legendary or a legend player to us as individuals. And so that's a great point. It's hard to dispute that. Um, and you'd be hard pressed to get me to say otherwise, that it can be someone who is legendary to you individually because of what they achieved and what you remember and what you experienced.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Aaron?
Right. I agree. I think legendary status is always a more personal opinion to ask, because it is what it means to you. Like, for me, probably one of the most legendary players for me is going to be AI, Allen Iverson, because I knew where he came from. I saw his growth. I saw the impact he had. He doesn't have the ring, but I saw what he did. Whereas we talked about it the other week, somebody along the same lines or came in the game at the same time, Kobe Bryant. I'm not going to say he wasn't great. I'm not going to say he wasn't a legend to some, but not as much to me for various reasons. But
Right.
one is and one is not. So it is a very much an opinion based conversation.
And I love that.
And I like to,
Oh, please.
can
Go
I
ahead,
add to
Dre.
this? Can I
Yep.
add to it?
Yep.
AI is a great example because when you start going down the list of who are legendary NBA players, AI is always going to be toward, the middle pack for most. But I think part of also being a legend or being considered as a legendary player is, did you transcend the culture at that time? And AI did. Nobody was wearing tattoos. Nobody was wearing braids. AI came into the NBA and it took over the entire globe. Everybody wanted to get tattoos. Everybody wanted to have that hip hop look that AI brought in. So though he didn't get the rings, so he's never going to be in the same conversation with Kobe and Michael, but he did help to transcend the game to the level where we are today. And I think that alone is enough to make him legendary.
Very good. And I think that helps just kind of now open this up a little bit, because we've kind of set the stage for what legendary is, what it isn't. And I think by doing that first, this won't turn into a debate. It'll actually be something that we can kind of appreciate about each other, and our audience can do the same. So I will start just to get it tip off. New Edition does not go down as a great group on anybody's, Rolling Stone, anything that's pop. Temptations will be there. Other groups, NSYNC, other little NSYNC, my God, other groups that are like the
Yeah, you
OJs.
said
Just
that.
think, I did. That's on record. But I'm saying other things that they added contributions to music, they changed music, and they should. What makes them legendary to myself and to the culture in terms of my age group was the fact that I can still listen to them, and also the emotions, the memories of what was happening at that time, right? I remember how I felt seeing Bobby Brown dance. I did that in the sixth grade talent show. I had girls asking me out thinking, hey, in seventh grade, can you dance with me? We won't finish the story, but that happened because of Bobby Brown. So why do you guys, is it hard to believe that a girl wanted to dance with me, Dre? Is that what you're looking at? Just because I ain't light skinned don't mean I had no play.
You
Good
must have been the
gracious.
only brother in the class. The
I
only
was.
brother
It
in the
was.
class.
I was in Springfield, Virginia, in the '90s. There were 3 black people. I was 2 of them. So,
Kudos
see
for
what I'm
you
saying,
for
audience.
knocking out the box. Kudos for you. I'm, you made me proud with that one. Good job.
So let me ask you, Dre, just setting it up like that. I don't think there is a legendary go-go band ever. Tell me
Oh,
why
you
there is.
crazy.
But see,
Okay,
you're from the DC. That's what I'm saying. Tell
right.
that story.
So, and I think that's fair. I don't have you won't get any pushback from me because you said that. But having grown up here in the city and knowing all the bands, and seeing all of the bands play at some point in time live, because that's the whole experience about go-go. You got to go to it live. You can listen to it on a record or a tape and it's going to drive you crazy, but going there live and seeing how the car response atmosphere works and seeing how everybody is going to be dancing, everybody's going to dance, even Bobby Brown would be dancing at the go-go. So with that, Rare Essence is always going to be that legendary band because number one, I remember they put the album out, the live recording from the Metro Club back in '85. I was the only one walking around Stonewall Jackson Senior High School that had that on his Walkman. I was the
Hey,
man.
bro, hold
Okay.
on, bro. How old is you? Now are you? How old is you? Because 85, I was still 8 years old. Never
Okay,
mind.
you and my brother the same age, so you already know
Oh,
that. You
falsehood.
already know
He's
that.
younger than me. He's younger than me.
Okay, well, so but 85, yeah. So and then I went and saw them, play all the time, almost every night.
Right.
So Red Essence is always going to be the legendary go-go band, and they had people like Dougie Fresh was on an album. They did the what was the guy from the Fat Boys, the light skinned one, Prince Marky
Oh,
D. He
I
was
thought it was
on it.
Albie
So
Shore.
no, so Gogo has a lot more influence than people give it credit for. It never got the recognition because it couldn't be played on the radio, and perhaps they had some bad, management from here and there. But
I'm sure there are some
overall,
stories there.
but
Yeah,
but you know what? Here's my thing about New Edition, if I can, real quick.
please.
I agree with you. I'm a New Edition fanatic. I love them. They were, as I told our mother, they were our or my Temptations.
Correct.
Mom, you had the Temptations. You had Motown. New Edition was my Temptations. But at the same time, New Edition was just the Temptations in my era.
Correct.
So
They didn't
so
start that thing.
yeah,
Correct.
you gotta give more love to the Temptations at
Correct.
some point if you want to be fair.
But and Aaron, I want you to answer that same question in terms of something for you, not so much go-go, but Dre, you and your your mom and I had so many conversations in that little split level downstairs just for hours, and that was one of them. And somehow I always lost because it came back to that. You didn't start this. If someone a generation before her would tell her, the Temptations didn't start this. So I think it's also by era, and again, what it meant to you and that group that you can put back on. Now, Aaron, I don't want to go more into who else for you on a sports level or even music would you say is off the beaten path, but you have a reason why
Mm.
they're legendary? Because AI really isn't
Um,
off the beaten path.
no, not at all. Off the beaten path is kind of tough because um, it goes along the lines of it makes you try to think of somebody that isn't popular. Um,
Not as
I
okay. I
will
see what
say
you're saying.
that I'm just saying that's the thought that comes into your head. But for me, like somebody who I don't think gets enough credit and is legendary to me, like Andre commented on earlier, is John Thompson.
Okay.
I don't feel like he gets enough credit. And Georgetown during the time period that he coached, I don't feel like gets people look upon that as fondly as they should for what was accomplished by that team and what was accomplished by Coach Thompson. They were like people outside of DC that didn't know thought that Georgetown was the HBCU from DC because it was a black basketball team. Nobody knew that them 15 guys on that team were the only black kids in the school, period. And that didn't know that Howard was down the road that is an actual HBCU. So I don't think they get enough credit for the time period of the impact that Georgetown had upon culture. The Nike shoes with Hoyas across the back became a legendary shoe. The starter jackets with Georgetown was second probably only to the Raiders jackets. It was just it transcended sports into fashion because they were a black team, and not just a black team that was good and that played and that didn't take crap from the other blue blood teams, such as North Carolina, Kentucky, Duke, all the other
Don't you say
teams
it.
that people know about. So that's who I think
That's
of
a
when
good pull.
when it comes to off the beaten path legendary.
That's a great pull, and I don't want to go too much into this because we have another episode coming up. We want to talk a little bit more about Georgetown, but Dre, and this is a side question because we're running down on time here. Georgetown, as Aaron gave them that setup as to what they were, y'all know how I feel about Duke. However, no one our age group could deny how great and how much we loved Michigan's 5'5", right? So can history erase you? Because Michigan University tried to erase, because of some stupid NCAA technicality, they tried to erase something that happened. So if you are legendary and something comes up in your past, whatever the case may be, I'm not talking about anything that's going to put you in jail. I'm just saying something like that. Does that remove your legendary status?
I'd have to answer that with a yes, it can. Because
Okay.
again, if we go back to what we set as part of the criteria at the beginning, it's that memory that instantly comes to your mind. And if the person and there was an incident or something that was a negative situation, then that's what's immediately going to come to your mind. It's the same reason why so many of these Major League Baseball players can't get in the Hall of Fame. It has nothing to do with their
Ooh,
career stats, but it has
great
everything to
pull.
do with off what they did off the field. Were they involved in steroids, or they were a nasty, mean person? They said some things after baseball that were, hideous. And I find that ironic because you allow that to keep the person from becoming a Hall of Famer. But then when we go back to in time, and we go back to when black players couldn't get in the major league, but we never allowed that to be the reason to put them in because of
Ooh,
the racism that kept them out. See, so we the
it
society that we
changes.
live in, and we won't go down that rabbit hole, but it just goes to show that that's why I can never really support and love baseball. I think they got too many unwritten rules, which to me is just idiotic to begin with.
I didn't see that turning into a hate on baseball, but I think your point's valid. I think you used it the right way. So I'll end it with this. What you just said is exactly why I think I was surprised by the reaction to, we did a Kobe episode, if you look down our timeline, and it's definitely not the most supported episode. And I respect that. I respect it because there is something on that record that may have just said to everybody, I don't care if you're guilty or innocent, I don't want to be a part of that. And I think what you do, as we talk about it, even biblically, right? We talk about that, making a good name. I think what you do can tarnish something, but to those who just want to overlook it, you can. But for the masses, that may take you out of that legendary status. Is that fair, Aaron?
Fair enough.
All right. Well, Aaron, can you wrap this up for us, please? Put on a bow on it and a nice little light skin thing that won't be too offensive to you light brothers.
To anybody that thinks that the team they cheer for is legendary, feel free to make a comment. I'm sure we missed out on a lot because we talked about things that are important to us, but like we said, this is an opinion based conversation. So go into the comments, let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week on what we're talking about.
Thanks, Dre.
Appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Hey people, thanks for checking out the show. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right there so you'll get all the latest content.